to step up deployment of assets to curb incidents of insecurity in Benue State. Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, said this during discussions with Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State.
Supported the airport so much so that we have some excess airplanes. We are looking at flash points where there are crises. Benue State is one of the areas that we are thinking of sending down some of our air assets.
Well, as part of a renewed effort to rehabilitate internally displaced persons in Yobe State, Federal Commissioner, National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and IDPs, Sadia Umar Farouk, has launched distribution of water pumping machines to returnees to enable them engage in dry season farming activities. The intervention is to place them on the path of self-reliance.
First phase of the Durable Solution Program we are bringing to Yobe State. The people of Kujiba specifically are going to be the first beneficiaries of this empowerment program.
And the Federal Ministry of Mines and Steel Development has pledged to assist key players in the solid minerals sector on ways to harness the rich mineral resources in Benue State. The minister, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, said this during a working visit to the state.
Areas that you believe have abundance of these minerals.
The change mantra of the federal government is not limited to changing attitudes to work and management of public resources. It also involves reorientation of Nigerians on good road ethics. Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Garba Abari, said this at the Good Roads Ethics Sensitization.
Talking about engendering internal security, because a reckless road user is not only a danger to himself, he is also a danger to other road users.
And Controller General of Customs, Hamid Ali, has reiterated his commitment to reorganize and reform the service in tune with federal government's change agenda. Hamid Ali, who stated this while decorating newly promoted top officials on command posting, emphasized the need for professionalism.
Service must now know that you cannot sit and not do anything and expect to be promoted. Gone are those days.
Hamid Ali says.
Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Rhoda and Kingsley after this break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
This market is very, very bad before. When it came, so he said this market is very bad. We will give it a nice shape. He do it.
Most people that normally go to Douglas market, they now come here because we have a good market now, where no more flooding in the market places anymore.
Formerly, I don't know here, many days in the middle of Pagidanya to Natanya, Malugia, and what he had your town, They not here.
Yes, this is a man ever. Ever Miri more than a quite ever. But today, I won't know now.
The Emo Rescue Mission. Emo must be better.
NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, a subsidiary of the Nigerian Television Authority, specializes in creating comfort in all areas of life, such as real estate investments, that is, land, houses, and office spaces, mass leasing, savings and loan scheme, household items and car loans, and so much more. Other information and entertainment services include Property in Style, a TV program that airs on the network service of the NTA, and also Property Connect, a nationwide magazine. Our priority is to bridge poverty gaps and sustain quality welfare of our clients. Partner with us and watch us help you grow. Pay us a visit today at the NTA headquarters permanent site, Area 11 Garki, Abuja, or our Lagos office at number 15 Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos. For more information, visit our website on www.ntaproperties.com.ng, or you can email us on ntapeak2000@yahoo.com. Call us on 080-2316-3474 or 080-6939-5185 or 070-3189-0555. NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, the much needed help at your doorstep.
All right, welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. Now let's bring you up to date in the world of business and finance. The Central Bank of Nigeria's intervention in focus as experts call for more channels to meet demands in the foreign exchange subsector. Leah Katung Babatunde will bring us details of this and more. Hello and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria Business News. The multiple sources, the forex, and the need to free the economy of ambiguous policies and regulations have been identified as panacea to relax the business terrain and boost investors' confidence for a robust economy. Patorama, an investor and economy analyst, in an interview with NTA Business News, said CBN's intervention in the foreign exchange market is a welcome development because it is one of the ways of stabilizing the naira, but decries the fact that it is a single source and will, in the long run, weaken the sustainability of the process.
There must be other channels of getting funds aside from the Central Bank of Nigeria into the economy for the forex intervention to sustain and to have the desired effect on the economy.
Mr. Orama also called on government to address the issue of interest and foreign exchange differentials being owed marketers in the petroleum sector.
There seems to be some of foreign governments promising they're going to pay, but I believe that if this is settled, it will go a long way of easing the problem of the players in oil and gas, and at the same time make supply of oil and gas very sustainable.
He said it is necessary to sustain the foreign exchange intervention of the federal government through the Central Bank of Nigeria. The March 2017 CPI and inflation report, as well as diesel, petrol, kerosene, transport, gas, and selected food price watch reports will now be released on Thursday, the 13th of April 2017. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, in a statement said the data will not come on Saturday, the 15th of April, as previously indicated in the NBS Advanced Data Release Calendar. Oil rose towards $56 a barrel on Monday, supported by another shutdown at Libya's largest oil field and heightened tensions over Syria following the U.S. missile strike. Libya's Sharaha oil fields was shut on Sunday after a group blocked a pipeline linking it to an oil terminal. The field had only just returned to production after a week-long stoppage ending in early April. Oil prices have also been supported by a deal led by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries to cut output by 1.8 million barrels per day for the first 6 months of 2017. Libya and Nigeria are exempt from cuts. Now the Nigerian Stock Exchange resumed the week on a slow mode, losing steam marginally to see the all-share index diminish. Let's take a look at graphic summary. And that's business news. Thank you for watching.
Leah Katum Babatunde, thank you very much there for the business news. Next for us, of course, we'll be taking a look at the stories trending on the front pages of some of the papers we have in our kitchen this morning.
Welcome back. The man whose business it is to review the papers with us this morning is already seated here, and that's Bayo Atoyebi. Bayo, good morning.
Morning, Rhoda.
Good to see you.
Oh, good to see you too. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, pleasure to have you. Of course, you know, I'm sure when you were coming, it was sunny this morning.
Yes, I almost didn't want to wake up because of the rain. But right. Duty calls.
Yeah, pretty wet morning. I'm sure the temperatures, of course, will be a lot cooler now here in the FCT. Let's begin by taking a look at the front pages. And the first part we're taking a look at will be the Daily Trust. There are stories on the front pages that I'll come on to some of the papers. But let's begin with Daily Trust immediately below the nameplate. Rufai, that's the governor of Kaduna State, publishes pay and dares National Assembly to do same. Details of that story can be found on page 4. But the lead story says Patience Jonathan, that's former First Lady, withdraws cash from unblocked account. And the photograph there also shows her. You can see she's the last person descending the steps of the bank in Maitama, Abuja yesterday. There's Patience Jonathan withdraws cash from unblocked account. Now, other headlines there. Customs abolishes HND BSc dichotomy. Details on page 7. HND, of course, and bachelors, that would be BA, B.Ed, or whatever such designation. Boko Haram, that's the kicker. Trump to sell 12 attack planes to Nigeria. Details on page 10. And Naira slides to 410 against the dollar at BDCs. That's Bureau de Change.
And on the Authority newspaper, that's above the nameplate now. Let's begin from there. It says, Andy Uba petitions IGP over alleged extortion blackmail. That's on page 4. And on page 33, Ugwai has performed above average, says Prince Na. And of course, Olufalaye's abductors gets life imprisonment. That's on page 4 of the Authority newspaper. And the big story on the Authority this morning is $17 billion stolen oil money. Reps summon Magu probe CBN, NNPC, and others. That's the lead story on the Authority this morning. Now let's move to the foot of the paper. There's just one headline there, and it says Wike has survived 5 assassination attempts. Wike has survived 5 assassination attempts. Rivers State government. You can read that story on the front page, and of course continued on page 2 of the Authority newspaper. All right, Bayo, let's get your views on those stories.
Well, let's start with the challenge thrown by the governor of Kaduna State and also Speaker Yakubu Dogara. There was a retreat, management retreat of the members of the National Assembly at Kaduna, and during the closing ceremony, Governor El-Rufai asked the National Assembly to disclose their budgetary allocations, salaries, and allowances to Nigerians. He argued that this, if it is done, will close doors of speculation about their salary and put the National Assembly in better light. The speaker who was there, Yakubu Dogara, said he did not want to join issues with the governor. He, however, challenged the governor also to disclose how much they are paid and the security votes, as well as the joint account owned by the local government, between state and local government. Speaker Dogara said Governor El-Rufai should champion the cause of transparency by inducing some of his colleagues at the Governors Forum to disclose, to be transparent about local government joint account. El-Rufai has risen to the challenge. He has published his salary, his February salary 2017, basic salary 185,308 naira 75 kobo. He earns a hardship allowance of 370,617 naira 50 kobo, and his gross pay is 555,926. He pays tax, payee, and the tax is 85,401. And the other challenge, he also disclosed what is described as state security votes, and they are in 4 trenches. There's one for justice, one for technology, one for community, and the other for engagement in the support of security agencies. And he disclosed the figure in the 2017 budget, 1.5 for procurement of equipment for CCTV, 193 million for geoposition interception facility to aid challenges of kidnapping, and 265 million for procurement of drones for challenges of security. In total, 1.958 billion is the total security vote. The ball now is in the court of Speaker Yakubu Dogara, and the challenge is to disclose the salaries of the members of the National Assembly and the details of the 150 billion that subsequently was the one-line vote of the National Assembly.
All right, well, that's an issue that will always continue to be in the public domain. I'm sure there will be many questions that will also be raised with regard to the figures disclosed by Rufai, and also the powers that are exercisable while in office. Let's take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper. Above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, let's take a look at that. It says, no monitoring of calls and social media, says government. And then minister, of course, dispersed rumor. That rumor, of course, rife a couple of days ago. Now, military hands over 593 Boko Haram members and suspected suicide bombers dead near Unimide. Why? Indeed, they didn't play Everton tie. That's according to his manager. And Abuja Airport runway, 95% ready, says minister. Of course, we have the countdown now, Bayo.
Yes.
About 9 days to go for the reopening, scheduled reopening of the airport. Let's take a look at the other headlines there. Of course, the lead story has to do with El Rufai making his salary and security vote public. A life jail for Olufala's abductors. And elsewhere on the front page, Jonathan's wife fails to draw from $5.8 million deposit. Well, that's different from what the Daily Trust is reporting. Daily Trust on its front page as its lead says Patience Jonathan withdraws cash from unblocked account. Now the Nation is reporting Jonathan's wife's failure to draw from the deposit. And EFCC recovers 250 million naira cash at Lagos market. And Dogara worried about some revenue loss in the oil industry.
All right, now the Nigerian pilots below the nameplates, Aregbesola, local government autonomy and aberration in federalism. Local government autonomy and aberration in federalism. That's a story that's on page 6 of the pilot. And how Nigerians encourage substandard products, says Sun. That's on page 6 of the Nigerian pilot. And the lead story, Senator Sani to El Rufai. You're unfit to talk about transparency as governor makes expenditure security votes public. I'll take that again. Senator Sani to El Rufai, you're unfit to talk about transparency as governor makes expenditure security vote public. And there's a rider there. How can a governor who has collected local government allocation for 2 years without elected local government council chairman in place talk about transparency? As a question there. That's a rider for that story. If you come down, abductors of Olufala is sentenced to life jail. That's on page 6. Let's go to the foot of the paper. That's on page 6. Military frees 593 people cleared of Boko Haram ties. NGO condemns deployment of 221 police officers to Wike. Fresh headers attack leaves female farmer dead in Benue, and compel first-class emirs chiefs to fund education in the north. That's a statement they're credited to Yakasai. That story is on page 4 of the Nigerian pilots. Sorry, Brian.
Yes, let's clarify about this report about former First Lady Patience Jonathan's account. I think the report by Punch and The Nation is far behind the news, because Daily Trust and indeed Telegraph have reported that the former First Lady was at the bank and she made withdrawals. Initially, when she got there, she demanded to withdraw a huge sum of money, which was estimated about a fifth of the quantum of the money. And the bank said they didn't have the money. She insisted she was not leaving the bank until she got her money. In the meanwhile, she returned to the bank at 10 o'clock, and by 4 p.m. when she left, she withdrew $100,000. Meanwhile, the EFCC has already acquired a stay of execution as well as appealed the Lagos court judgment that defroze the account. Meanwhile, the EFCC also is said to have recovered $250 million at the Balogun market. A whistleblower had called the attention to it. The money was taken to a bureau de change, and before they got there, they have already changed some of it to euro and pound sterling. But they were able to apprehend two PDs, bureau de change operators, who indicated that the money belonged to their boss that had been sent to them from a northern state. You recall that 3 days earlier on, about 449 million was allegedly discovered by the FCC, abandoned at a bureau de change. Abandoned money, quantum of money. Legal experts say it is not illegal. It is not illegal to have money. However, when you seize huge sums of money, unless you can link it to a criminal offense, a crime, or a violation of the law, we might be embarking on a prosecutory wild goose chase.
All right, Bayo, that's right. The latest monies that the FCC was reported to have found was in Balogun.
Balogun market,
Balogun,
yes.
I'm sure if you were to go virtually every square inch of Balogun, I'm sure you'll have cash to pick up to fill probably the entire vaults of many banks on the island. But there are issues, of course, that the EFCC will clarify going forward. Let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. The Punch also has as its lead story the Air Refi issue, but then we have other headlines above the nameplate. Dangote to list refinery on stock exchange, and on frozen $5.9 million. Bayo has already spoken to that. So that's story, of course, overtaken by events, as reported there by the Punch. Now, PDP governors are not thieves, says McCarthy, and Trump to sell $600 million fighter jets to Nigeria. And then we have other headlines there. The rider to the lead story says Nigeria spends ₦1 trillion on National Assembly in 10 years without details, and federal legislature will make budget public after appropriation bill. Now, the photographs there show the convicts who were convicted of, the persons who were convicted of abducting Chief Olufala from his farm in Ondo. They've been sentenced to life jail. Army frees 539 Boko Haram suspects in Borno. And then, of course, you also have the Wike has survived 5 assassination attempts, Rivers alleges. Bayo.
Yes, talking about sentencing, 7 headsmen have been sentenced to life imprisonment. They have abducted Chief Olufala on 21st of September 2015. In court, Chief Olufala, who was abducted and had to pay ransom to get released, identified 3 of the 5 suspects. They were charged with offenses, 5 counts. However, the court cleared them of 2, and they were convicted life imprisonment for 2. There is going to be a meeting of 19 northern states governors in Kaduna with the Sultan. The Commissioner for Health for Plateau States, Dr. Kudem Kamshak, said the meeting is to do an overview and strategy to import meningitis vaccine to tackle the current outbreak of meningitis. The parley is to discuss measures to also produce vaccines locally. It may be recalled that meningitis type A is what is current in the Sahel-Sahara region. Type C and B are in Europe and Asia. Somehow it found its way into Nigeria, and that is now has become the challenge. So the annual vaccination for meningitis had always been for type A. Meanwhile, a shopper went to a shop in South Africa. He wanted to buy yogurt. He opened a refrigerator and found a chilled snake. They called the snake catcher, and he pulled out a 12-foot python. The python had gone into hibernation and will be asleep for at least 4 hours. When it wakes up, it will be sent into the wild. Lucky python. If it were in Nigeria, it may have ended in somebody's pot of soup.
Or snake pepper soup. All right, Bayo TV, a pleasure having you on the program today. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow midweek.
Thank you for having me.
Right, okay, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the proposal for the establishment of community-based modular refineries in parts of the Niger Delta.
stand up. Nigeria, change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, okay, ruler. Change begins with you and me. Oh, change begins with me. Oh, change begins with me. Oh, change begins with me.
Cadbury Bournvita now comes in an attractive new 500-gram refill pack. Simply open and reseal after use to retain the chocolatey and creamy taste. Cadbury Bournvita. Prepare to win.
He's been so unwell. Do you use stored water to bath him? Of course I do. You know, stored water is not necessarily clean enough to use as is.
True, stored water may look clean, but it has germs. Pour Dettol's 1 cup full daily in stored water, leaving you hygienically clean and germ-free after every bath.
So, stop storing germs, start adding health.
Be 100% sure.
From the south-south to the northeast, southeast to the northwest, southwest to the north-central, the Future Assured project and its components Get Involved is restoring hope to millions of Nigerian women and children.
We are actually doing a lot under Future Assured, the program of Her Excellency Mrs. Aisha Muhammadu Buhari. And I believe what we are doing so far is impacting positively on the lives of women and children in Nigeria, particularly those in the internally displaced camps across the nation.
Get Involved. Support the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. And this morning, our item for discussion is community-based modular refinery. Concerned over the plight of the Niger Delta people, the federal government came up with a new vision with a view to developing the region. And one of such vision is the establishment of the community-based modular refinery. Omotola Modular will tell us more in this background report, of course, that will kickstart our discussion this morning.
The history of oil exploration in Nigeria is long, and the consequences have brought economic benefit to the country. On the other hand, it is the undoing of a particular segment of a nation where the activities have affected human and aquatic lives. Beyond the activities of the big oil companies, the quest for survival in the midst of plenty, as some will say, led many young Nigerians into illegalities. From pipeline vandalism to oil bunkering and illegal refining, some Nigerians, through criminal ingenuity, unfortunately created ventures. While the benefits of the end products go to the criminals, the nation keeps struggling with price stability and still depend on foreign refining to meet the almost insatiable demands of the populace. Until recently, government only saw the criminal aspect of the activities of illegal refineries, most of which adopt the modular form. Facts show that Nigeria imports some 60 million litres of petrol daily, and experts submit that the cost of this in a month could establish close to 10 modular refineries. Yes, the federal government, as part of its move to economically advance the Niger Delta region, is poised to adopt the technology to establish community modular refineries. This new vision, which analysts say is the right step in the right direction, is aimed at making such communities partners as well as address the lingering issues of illegal refining. There are also available analyses of the value chain it will create in the region for the good of all. But how workable will the new policy be? What are the benefits and are there challenges to this? Join guest on Good Morning Nigeria in a short while for detailed analysis.
Modular, thank you very much there for that background report. Now we have with us here in the studios and, of course, at other remote locations to discuss the issue of the proposed community-based modular refineries. We have with us again Mr. Sonny Atuma, is an oil and gas analyst. Mr. Atuma, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And then we have joining us from our Lagos Network studios, a fairly familiar face. And Good Morning Nigeria is Mr. Bala Zaka, is a petroleum engineer. Mr. Zaka, a pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigeria.
And we're also being joined from our Port Harcourt Network Center, Ambassador Marvin Yobana, and he is a former African representative, World Assembly of Youths and Niger Delta. It's good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, and also from our Port Harcourt Network Center, we have Professor Chijioke Nwozuzu. He is the Deputy Director, Emerald Energy Institute, University of Port Harcourt. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Good to be on your program.
All right, so let's begin from Port Harcourt with Professor Chijioke Nwozuzu. Professor Chijioke, for a better understanding, especially for our viewers, would like to know what a modular refinery is. A lot of us are very conversant with the Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Warri refinery. What is the difference between this and a modular refinery?
First and foremost, people make the mistake of thinking that a modular refinery is necessarily a small refinery. It is not. It's just a format for putting refineries in place. You can also have a big refinery, okay, but constructed in structured increments, okay? So, and those structured increments are called modules. So a modular refinery is just a format of refinery construction, not necessarily a small refinery, okay? But usually, modular refineries are fabricated, prefabricated, and then installed at the client site. The benefit of modular refinery is that, assuming you are constructing a 100,000 barrel a day refinery, you can do it in 5 installments of 20,000 barrels per day capacity, and then the funds you generate from the first 20,000 enables you to put the next increment of 20,000 barrels a day. But the good thing is it takes roughly 18 to 20 months to fabricate, and then perhaps another 3-4 months to install. So it's quicker to install. That's one good benefit. And while you are adding additional modules, you don't have to shut down the existing module. And then it's cheaper compared to the big size or medium size refineries. Yeah, so these are some of the benefits. But again, most of them are either fully automated or semi-automated. So in terms of job creation, it doesn't quite create a lot of jobs because you need just a few hands to operate those modules. However, there are always spin-off business activities around such plants, like transport, restaurants, hotels, and the rest. So those are where the jobs are created, but these are of a secondary nature.
All right, Professor Nwozuzu, thank you very much. We'll come back again to deal with the mechanisms, for operating the modular refinery, taken away from the concept table where it is at the moment, and also on the basis of the explanation that you have provided. But my question goes to Ambassador Marvin Yobana. The whole idea of having community-based modular refineries is to supplant the bush or illegal refineries that we have at the moment. It's also useful for us to have an understanding why, in spite of the clear hazards, illegal refineries have thrived for so long in the Niger Delta.
Well, the issues have been here for a very long time. And like you know, and other Niger Delta people know, the Niger Delta people have always felt that they are being alienated from the actual participation in the oil and gas industry. That's why we have over 5,000 illegal activities of refining and bunkering going on around the region as we speak today. So what these modular refineries will do is to give a sense of belonging to the Niger Delta people, mostly those who participate in this illegal refinery and bunkering and pipeline vandalism and all that. I think that the whole idea is to put a group of these individuals together and form one modular refinery, and they participate in it. Train them, provide the necessary expertise for them to be able to operate it, and provide the funds that is needed to carry out these activities legally. And you see, it will also boost the economic growth of the country, because it will increase our capacity in terms of oil production, and the oil-related products will also go into the market, which is one thing. Why it has persisted in the Niger Delta is because it's a source of income for the Niger Delta people. Remember that this region is polluted, that the land, the sea, and the environment is so polluted that the level of environmental degradation in this area moved the present administration, President Buhari, to ensure that the Ogoni cleanup commences. And this is one administration that has taken the issues of Niger Delta very seriously. Look at this issue of the modular refineries as we speak. It is going to have a sustainable solution to these issues of Niger Delta people not participating in their commonwealth. And I think that this approach is a good approach, which has long not been considered. It is beyond the amnesty and every other thing we talk about. So when the community people have a sense of belonging in the project, they have to protect this pipeline, they have to protect these oil facilities, and they see the project as their own project. I think it helps for integration in this country at this time.
All right, Ambassador Yobana, thanks a lot. We'll come back to you again in the course of the conversation. Over now to our Lagos studios, where Bala Zaka was introduced earlier as a petroleum engineer. Mr. Bala Zaka, what's your take on this transition, proposed transition from illegal refineries to modular refineries in the context of Nigeria's overall inadequacy in seeking to meet its own refined petroleum needs?
Yeah, thank you very much. Generally, I mean, when you talk about infrastructural deficit in Nigeria, Nigeria is really suffering from infrastructural deficit. You have issues with transportation, you have issues with housing, but fundamentally we are talking about energy today. And when you're talking about energy, definitely the oil and gas industry will come in. And just basically or historically, if you look at it, consciously or unconsciously, between 1965 and 1989, in a span of probably 24 years, we were able to construct 4 refineries. The first one was Port Harcourt in 1965. The second one was Warri in 1978. Then we had Kaduna in 1980. Then the second Port Harcourt refinery in 1989. Between 1990 and now, 2017, you're talking about 27 years. We've not been able to construct one additional refinery, and we've not been able to even maintain the ones we inherited from the previous generation of leaders. That on its own will tell you that there will be energy crisis. So if going the way of modular refineries will help us to start doing something to reduce the energy crisis, that will be a fantastic idea. Because if you look at it today in Nigeria, right, the strategic domestic sector, the strategic industrial sector, and the strategic commercial sector are all groaning due to lack of energy. Then back to the point of the refineries. What we have in the Niger Delta are not illegal refineries. They don't even qualify to be called refineries. They are pollution plants. They are toxification plants. And if we don't check their proliferation, with time, they will degenerate the environment of the Niger Delta into a carcinogenic environment. But as far as the economy is concerned, of course, we can start small, just like the way the professor explained, in modules, and we can build up ourselves and be self-sufficient in terms of energy. Thank you.
I was just wondering, Mr. Balazaka, you talked about that's a matter of semantics or nomenclature, whether the refineries are illegal or pollutant by size. But people will always draw attention to what we had during the Nigerian Civil War, 1967 to 1970, on account of the blockade of the then eastern region, which had declared itself as Biafra. They engaged in the refining of petroleum products, and which got them going for as long as, of course, the Civil War lasted until January 1970. Couldn't this kill also now, or this idea, if you like, be utilized in dealing with the aspects of our energy crisis by way of modular refineries?
No. In the days of great leaders like late Dim Ojukwu, there was creativity. I mean, in his days, of course, they were refining crude oil around Uzuakoli, but that one had a lot to do with creativity. He got people from the university, within Nigeria and outside Nigeria. They were able to get the product. There was creativity, and you could see what they did around Uzuakoli and other areas where they were refining. But what you are having today is a concept of criminality. Before you call something a refinery, there are basic substructures that are supposed to be there. What we have in the Niger Delta today do not even qualify to be called refineries. They are materials that are just polluting the environment. And that was why I called them pollution materials. I didn't even want to call them facilities, because they do not qualify to be called facilities. They are basically drums that are plastic drums and iron drums. And remember, the means of getting these products were through Through stealing or tapping. Somebody else invested so much to acquire the field, to go to the environment, drill this oil, and had them piped to either flow stations or to the point of sales. And some people will now come, tap this crude oil, steal them, and will go and distill them. At the end of the day, biodegrading the environment. First of all, before you even have what we call a refinery in place, you need to go through regulatory stages. You have the first stage of license to establish. Then you will graduate to the point of license to construct. After that, then you will go to the point of license to operate. Then within that time, you can now be talking about having a facility. What we really have has biodegraded the environment. And at the end of the day, groundwaters have been polluted, farms have been biodegraded. If you go to our rivers, everything there, the farms, the water animals have also suffered, or aquatic life. Even predators that come to prey on aquatic life, they suffer from what we call hypothermia. So technically, I can tell you, they do not even qualify to be called illegal refineries. They are actually pollution facilities.
Thank you very much. We'll get back to you in the course of this discussion. Dan, let's get the views of Sani Atsuma. You just listened to all of our guests in Port Harcourt and, of course, in Lagos. What's your view on this? What do you make of the move by the federal government to establish, modular refineries?
Well, it is good that the government is actually making moves to address the situations. But let's look at it. First of all, how did we get here? You get to the Niger Delta, the creeks and all that. They don't have products. it costs, from my studies, it costs at least, it costs about 250 naira to buy a liter of petrol, that is gasoline, in those areas. And they are not available. So, that there is a market for it means that some people will go into that. And that is how we found ourselves in the issues of illicit refining, which ordinarily too is not too good for the environment. Yes, the government is coming up to say, let's bring them together. Who is going to manage them? You say community-based refineries. Is it the federal government now coming into it? Where we have 4 refineries that for the past 20 years have been in oblivion. Nobody gets punished for the problems that we are facing about that. If these 4 refineries, let me take the case of the 3, in the Niger Delta, Warri, Port Harcourt 1 and Port Harcourt 2. If they were there, and I know that about the time these refineries were working, a lot of businesses, that went on in these areas where you have complex refineries. The 3 there are complex refineries. You have Warri with a petrochemical content, and where you have a complex refinery with petrochemical content, a lot of businesses. We tell you, for instance, that when you refine a barrel of crude, you get about 6,000 byproducts and derivatives. And what have we been doing? We left these refineries and rely on crude oil exports. I think that is the problem. If by now, we continued to improve on what we started, like one of our analysts said, yes, first of all, Port Harcourt 1, 2, Warri, Kaduna, and then Port Harcourt 1, Warri, Kaduna, and then Port Harcourt 2. Progressively, if we were doing that, there will be a lot of investments in these areas. But the idea of maybe government now coming to say we want community-based modular refineries, I don't think it is the best approach for now. It's not good, because what do we do with the ones that we have? They are dead. You want to bring in another set of managers for modular refineries? And nobody has asked what is really wrong. I have expected that government should go into the aspect of the 4 refineries that we have. For now, they can give us what we need. Yes, in terms of products and derivatives, and more can be added.
But how do you factor in the trove of issues pertaining to what the Niger Delta people feel or how they feel, and the fact that they yearn for some sense of ownership or participation in the oil and gas industry, quite aside from the inefficiencies that we have with the 4 existing government-owned refineries?
Yes, this is what you do. By the time, if government is investing more in building more refineries or upgrading, these refineries can be upgraded, and a lot of employment could be generated. Revenue can be generated for government. It is better than the aspect of saying, look, let's go to community modular refining.
All right, thank you very much, Sonny Atuma, for your contributions. But now let's bring in Dr. Chris Ekio, who's in our Benin Network Center, a Niger Delta activist and secretary Delta State Advocacy Committee Against Oil Facility Vandalization. Of course, he's also the former president, Ijo Youth Council. Dr. Chris Ekio, thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and good morning.
All right, you have been in the forefront, of course, of the Niger Delta issues, and you've been listening to all of our guests. Sonny Atuma here doesn't see the need for modular refineries, feels that the refineries we have could be upgraded or bigger ones established. But then, what's your take on this? What do you think about modular refineries, especially in communities in the Niger Delta region? Is it a welcome idea?
All right, thank you very much. First, I'd like to debunk Sonny's position about modular refineries not being necessary. It's like saying that because we had old roads and they have failed, we should not build new roads. Or because we had old roads that have potholes in the country, we must first fix all those old roads before we now build a new road to new locations. Now, the issue is that modular refineries are really not different from the conventional refineries. They are just refineries in small packets. And with smaller investment capacity. So it makes it easy for individuals or communities or a group of people to put resources together to set up something that is community-based. And it creates an advantage. Community is directly involved, and the job that is created is usually localized to local content area, because the capacity of such refineries are between 300 barrels to 50,000 barrels a day kind of production. And it also discourages what the last speaker before Sonny said about those local product refining that is ongoing now. Because if you do have pockets of modular refineries situated on platforms around communities, people will tend to permeate to go and be playing their roles around those investments. So I subscribe to the fact that government should provide licenses for people who have capacities, or who have partners that are willing to set up those small refineries. Because it is clear that the government can really not go it all with its existing 4 refineries. Since I was born, this refinery has been issued in this country. It's been that either they are not producing, or they don't have one problem, or there's a turnaround maintenance. And as I speak to you, crude swap is ongoing. People take our crude oil, 2 million barrels, take it out and bring maybe less than 1 million barrels in return for refined products. And all those other byproducts from refining crude is lost to these people. So if few Nigerians make millions of dollars at the expense of the remaining 180 million Nigerians because of the fact that the existing mega refineries are not being able to provide the required consumables. Now, that also gave birth to why people were desperate in trying to find alternative means to provide gas and fuel for local consumption. Because even in the cities, we do not have kerosene, DPK, we don't have enough PMS, neither do we have diesel. The prices have gone up. So either to when these products were readily available in the cities, in the Niger Delta creeks, we still paid more for it, about twice the price. So those desperation has caused communities to begin to look at alternative means to source for. And I can tell you that even the big companies end up buying from those local products. So the initiative to discourage that environmental way of producing something that despoils the environment by providing modular alternative is a welcome one. My only concern has been that even though we do call it a modular refinery, the minimum investment is between $200 million to $500 million. Now, how many people in these communities can raise that money? Maybe a few communities, cluster of communities may have partners. You need about $200 million down payment to set up a prefab modular refinery. $200 million. You probably need another $150 million for site preparation. The process also of getting the license to establish, the license to operate, and all those procedures are very cumbersome as it is now. So my worry has been that in as much as the federal government is geared towards supporting modular refining, which is a big plus for the Niger Delta region and Nigeria indeed, because those modular refineries would serve not only those communities, but the rest of Nigeria, and complementing the larger ones that we have that are already moribund. How is government going to be able to support this process in terms of facilitating owning those 3 sets of licenses? License to establish, to operate, and what's the third one? All those 3 licenses. I think I'm forgetting the third one. But and then, how do people get funding? We're talking about a minimum of $400 million. Are there going to be some kind of community-based banking or a minimal zero-digit kind of loan to encourage investment? Otherwise, you're still going to have foreigners coming in and doing the same thing that the IOCs and government is doing now, taking the whole chunk of the process, managing it themselves to the exclusion of the community. And then that will mean that we haven't solved the problem. There must be some major level of community participation. And I advocated that no matter where the money is coming from, excuse me, there must be some kind of equity for the littoral communities or the cluster communities in that refining process. So they own it, they support it, they protect it, and they stop vandals from interfering with it.
Well, Dr. Chris Akiyo, thank you very much. I mean, you've raised very critical issues pertaining to the funding or the financing of the modular refineries. Now, part of the information out there in the public domain is that the federal government, state government, as well as private investors all will be participants, in addition, of course, to the community stakeholders in all of this exercise. But how the equity will be shared, will be matters that will be dealt with going forward. But I'm just wondering, what we are seeking to do with modular refineries now, community-based modular refineries, will be a transition from illegal activities to legal activities. And if illegal activities by way of the unofficial refining that we have seen in the Niger Delta, if those activities have persisted for quite some while now, I mean a couple of decades or more, from your perspective, how easy would it be for the operators and all of those who have a stake in that illegality to transit from the stage of illegality to more formal and legal business entities by way of modular refineries?
All right, thank you. This is simple. This same question was asked me in 2009 when we were trying to get the armed people in the struggle in the creeks to disarm. One general said to me, how easy is it possible for people to be identified? Now, this class of persons have been classified as illegal bunkers and are declared probably criminals and all that. In the other climb in the north, the illegal miners who take the gold, the tin, and all that are seen as local artisans, and they've been clustered and they have been developed. What is going to happen and what should happen is that government must set up a policy that will encourage these people who are already involved in this illegality, as it is so-called, which I do not subscribe to. I think they are local refiners, legitimately to come out and put on the table their ideas, and then they should be part of the process that will have to be built technically so that they can be part of those technical support in these expected refineries. Once they have a stake in terms of participation, in terms of involvement, their capacities can be built. The truth is, anybody who can think through to go and bust a pipeline and get crude, cook it in some form of way, definitely have some common sense. And that's all you need. And then you need to develop them beyond that common sense knowledge to the proper technical stage where they are part of the production quantile of these modular refineries. You take them off from the illegality and put them in a legal framework where they have a sense of integrity, a sense of ownership, and a sense of support base for the country. What they are doing against the law as it sounds seems to be an issue of patriotism to their people. We do not have, we have crude running in our backyard. We don't have kerosene. We don't have petrol. We don't have diesel. We have to pay more for it. So why don't we take what we have and provide for our people? It's like a Robin Hood scenario, taken from the big brother and given to those who don't have it at an affordable price. So I'm sure that if government work with the leaders of the region, these people can be clustered, trained, retrained, supported to get involved, either as manpower for these modular refineries, because some of them may not have the kind of money that is assumed in quotes that they have. They do not. People in this country do oil and gas business, going with about $15 million daily. Those are the kind of people that can invest in this refinery. Not people who take a drum or two drum and produce half a drum of diesel and sell 100,000 or 200,000 to pay their bills. They are still as poor in what they are doing. And so what they make now is even not enough compared to the destruction of the environment that is ongoing. That is why I support that. They must get off that system and be platformed on a proper system where the proper things need to be done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Akiyo. Now let's go to our Lagos Network Center. Let's bring in Bala Zaka. Dr. Chris Akiyo raised a very critical issue here, and that's the issue of funding. And he's saying that if we don't get people within the country, have communities involved in funding so that they can be part, owners of these modular refineries, we'll continue to have what we have now, where we see people still take our crude oil out and get the byproducts and just bring in, fuel and kerosene and others for us. So what should this template for the modular refinery look like? Though the federal government has said that states and private investors would be involved, even federal government would be involved in this. But what should the template look like in such a way that it can attract people within the country to invest in this? All right, we seem to be having a challenge there with a loss of audio, but then we'll see how we can get to you again. That's Mr. Balazaka. Now let's go to Port Harcourt, and I'd also like our guest in Port Harcourt to do justice to this, and that's Professor Chijoke Walzuzu. The question that I asked Balazaka just now, that is, what should the template for the modular refinery look like in such a way that people whose communities these refineries are also established could also be a part of it or could own part of it? We have people within Nigeria also owning in such a way that we don't have what we already have now, people just taking our crude oil out and refining and just bringing back to us what is left.
Okay. The refining business is capital intensive, like Ekio from Benin did mention. So the financing structure has to be well set out. So how much is federal government investing, how much are the state governments invested, and then what proportion should private foreign investors inject into the project. But again, don't forget that refineries are built to process crude oil. So that template should include federal government guarantee of crude oil feedstock. Okay. Thirdly, the nature of refinery operation is that it runs for 2 years continuously, and then you shut down for like 2 months for routine maintenance, and you run again for 2 years continuously. So products are being churned out on a daily basis. So there has to be a guaranteed offtake for the products that are being churned out on a daily basis. And that has to be guaranteed. For the refineries to make some kind of profit or break even fast, there has to be some other incentives, like some tax holidays or discounted price of crude. Look, we subsidized the importation of petroleum products for a long time. So I don't mind if we subsidize domestic production of crude oil. So all these issues have to be addressed.
Professor Omozuzu, stay with you before we bring in Ambassador Yobana to speak further on community stakeholding in the proposed modular refineries. There's a point of curiosity that I would like you to clarify, I mean, from an engineering perspective. When we take a look at the products from the so-called crude or bush or illegal refineries, one would wonder, do they meet the standard specification? I mean, are they leaded or unleaded? I mean, what exactly do they do? I mean, refinery, you have ordinarily what you call the fractional distillation and so on and so forth. So who are those that purchase from the illegal refiners? And why is it that, assuming they use them on their generators or in their vehicles, the engines of those vehicles do not knock? That's as mechanics always will tell you. That's one leg. Therefore, will modular refineries, once we have this transition from illegal to modular refineries, have to meet standard operating guidelines?
Yes, definitely. Those illegal refineries are like crude topping plants. Their aim is to produce some diesel, okay? And then the residue, they find a way to either incinerate it or throw them into the waterways, which is the environmental problem that some of the contributors have talked about. What we need to see are not just topping plants, we also need catalytic converters and naphtha hydrotreaters, so that whatever naphtha is produced from the crude oil distillation can then be converted to PMS. So that way we'll have diesel products, we'll have PMS, we'll have kerosene, we'll have fuel oil, low-power fuel oil. And yeah, those are the kind of products we are expecting from these community-based modular refineries. It's not different from, normal refineries.
So, no, Prof, just for clarification again, is it the case that illegal refineries now churn out only a single product, which is diesel? And how clean is the diesel, or how pure is the diesel, and how come that, those who patronize them don't have complaints about the engines that they use them in, whether they are trucks, lorries, generators, or otherwise?
Yes, it's only diesel. That's the only product they can possibly get from such crude topping plants, like I called. They just put them in drums, boil them, and then whatever they get is usually diesel. And then the rest of the product, the residue, they try to discard in some way.
All right, thank you very much. Ambassador Marvin Yobana, let's deal now with some of the likely community issues that will arise. From your perspective, how will it be that you can get, the buy-in of most communities? I'm asking this question against the background of what we have seen in terms of community reaction to compensation for oil spillage and otherwise. Some communities have been reported in the past to directly, channel crude oil pollution to their own land so that they can get compensated. What will it be, in your opinion, for communities that feel left out once and if the modular refineries get to be established?
That is why this model is a very good model, because it will not, the agreements or the joint partnership, community-based, the experts, governments, and all the big players in the industry will not be different, the IOCs. That JV agreement must capture the community content, which will spell out clearly what the community is supposed to put in terms of providing the enabling environment, in terms of providing certain services, which must be spelled out in that JV agreement. Then, the IOCs or the international players or the big companies that are bringing in the money, it will be spelled out clearly. If they are the service providers, for instance, who pays who and who does what. These things will be clearly spelled out in this program. And why is it good is because it's a smaller package where the community sits down with the service providers and government, and they form a JV agreement, a joint venture agreement. That's what I mean by JV, so that they will now all become owners of these models. Now, when they become owners of this model, take for instance Ogoni, where we have 220 oil wells, 16 fuel stations, and 9 oil fields. And the community in Ogoni are key players, and they are owners of these models. Who will come and vandalize those pipelines or those facilities? They will be the ones that will protect it. And that is why the present administration of President Muhammad Buhari has deemed it fit to bring in the community. So it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars that is needed to set these things up. There are business persons in Nigeria and outside Nigeria that are interested in investing as long as they can be guaranteed of the enabling environment, one, of uninterrupted production. The market is already there. Now, for instance, the issue of environment, where the communities channel the oil to their farmland so that they will be paid compensation, is because that is the only hope they have to get any sustainable economic benefit from the whole business of oil production that is going on in their community. They see it that this is the only way we can make money. But when there is an alternative to economic growth of the community, they can locally have what they have, a community development board, which the community sits on that board, the government sits on that board, the oil company sits on that board, and they use it like what we have like NDDC and have the super deck in Delta, so that they can now have, how do we share this commonwealth that comes into the community? Now, the families that are owners of these farmlands, what percentage comes to them? So these are clear stages where you put these models together and you have a sustainable thing that would outlive this government, and it will become a model for reducing the restiveness in the region and any other part of Nigeria.
All right, Thank you very much, Ambassador Marvin Yobana. Let's get to Dr. Chris Akio, who's in Benin. Dr. Chris Akio, part of creating or wanting to create the modular refinery is job creation. And refining petroleum products is not a local technology. Do we have the skilled manpower for this? And also, to the second leg of my question is this. Ambassador Marvin was actually addressing something now. The communities, the farmlands where some of these things are established. Even with the amnesty program, we saw some people still feeling cheated or sidelined. How do we ensure that after establishing, and if and when it's established, we don't have people coming out to say, oh, we feel cheated or we're not carried along? So instead of now taking care or giving solution to a problem, we have created another one.
All right, thank you. Human nature is such that for every solution you provide, there will be some lacunas that people will catch on and complain. Now, in terms of the manpower, I've always said that Nigerians are perhaps one of the best, most, with a lot of people, we have the highest number of people with a lot of ingenuity. If you look at the operations of the current international oil companies as it were now, 70% of those who do the production line are Nigerians. Nigerian engineers, Nigerian technicians, people who do the roughnecks, the drillers and the riggers are Nigerian technicians doing this stuff, including deep water supply plant in SNEPCO and all those areas. You find Nigerians as engineers running this. What had happened is that when they do all this hard work to the point where it becomes clear that they need to now become leaders and managers of the process, they are exited. And people are always brought in from nowhere to come and help them. Particularly, these people are also Niger Deltans who have passion for the trade that is in their region. They have a passion for it, so they take the jobs. They are usually not even owners of the job. The owners are probably from the West or from foreign lands. So capacity is there. I can tell you that. Even in the amnesty program itself, a lot of people have been trained, in TNT in the US on oil and gas drilling. But they have no jobs because there's nowhere to place them. So issue of capacity is there. Now, we also had the local refiners who probably understand that if you heat crude oil, it will fractionate in different levels of weight, and they quickly heat it to the level where they can get diesel, they sieve it out, they abandon so many other products. So that process is also a wasteful process. So I say those group of persons will also be captured and immediately improved in terms of their capacity to participate as people, manpower for those plants. Now, for sharing, yes, I agree with you. It is possible, very possible, that some benefit captors who have influence in government, who are close to the people in power, would try to cluster themselves around the people in power and hijack benefits and try to make it look like it's their turn to grab. I want to submit that will happen. But I think that if government is sincere and government allows community to drive the process and community participation take the driver's seat, this will ease off minimally. What had happened is that government creates a policy, government drives the policy, and the people in government tend to skew it to suit their brothers, their friends, their sisters, or their cronies. That's the biggest problem Nigeria have in everything. A contract is going to be awarded based on because I know this man, an oil block will be given because this man is my in-law, a gas plant will be built because this is my community, not because the community has the capacity to stock gas. So you find out that people have built refineries in places where ordinarily there should be no refineries, or gas plants in places where ordinarily there should be no gas plant. Then the feedstock becomes a problem. What we are saying now is that you identify, Marvin has talked about Ogoni with 230 wellheads. That's a very stable place to set up a modular refinery. The feedstock line is just available. If you want to set up a gas plant, you're looking at where the gas is handy. Gas is just at the neighborhood. For instance, look at the refinery in Lagos. Welcome development, Lagos is stable, but somebody has to take gas from Niger Delta through pipes to be able to fire that refineries in Lagos. And then you have to guard those pipelines over the years for a lifetime. Why didn't you think about setting it right in the Brass LNG location where you have all the gas in the world to just drive the process? So nearness to source of raw material should be considered in this project. Community must be allowed to be in the driver's seat. And I've said it's a matter of equity. Community may not have the money, but equities can be given to them. See, look, because the oil is in your domain, and the government is giving us license to operate, this is your equity in this business, and this is your seat on this board, so they take decisions. Funds coming in as profit which should go to community social corporate responsibility development of the area, should be the members on the board knows that this is what we're getting. This X billion of naira comes in as profit. This is going for infrastructure. This is going for job creation. This is going for expansion, and we feel owned by the product. Now, those will kind of simmer down the desperation of greed. Yes, everybody cannot and will not necessarily own a modular refinery. I drove the amnesty process from A to Z. I am not a beneficiary of that program. I have not been trained by that program. I don't earn a salary from that program because I was not an armed militant at the time. So I expect that those who will drive it must not see this as it is now a time for us to gain. I had advocated for modular refinery from 2007 to date. I was there, myself and Chief Okrika, we kept advocating from 2007 to date. It's 10 years since I started this advocation. And I think that right now, we are just about to start. We have just put the first foot forward. It takes between 2 to 5 years to achieve this. And the models which we are going to put in place must take the community, importantly, for it to succeed.
Sorry, Dr. Chris Akiyo, just by way of a joke before I pop my other question. You said you were not an armed militant at the time. Are you one now? You are in our studios there in Benin, so that we tell our staff to be careful. But you've always been a delight as our guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, here's the question that I want to ask, and Yobana may also contribute to this. The federal government at the top is already driving this, and from the points being articulated by the guests on this program, it will involve, for it to succeed, a great deal of community participation. The communities, you find them at the local level. So the communities are there, the local governments are also there, and the state governments are also there. Is there any sense in which all of these levels of stakeholders have begun their own interactions to work out, as it were, their own acceptable or agreeable template for responding to this proposal for community-based modular refineries by the federal government?
Okay, this is how this has got to work. People who are investors or initiators of ideas will find partners who have capacity to invest. Now, once they have found partners, it is expected that those partners will be presented to the government for acceptability. That means you're showing capacity that we have some money to put down to invest on a modular refinery. And then government, who has the right to seed an area of operation, would engage the community and say, look, we think that since these people want to operate in your area, you could partner with them. Then investors, they could be local individuals, Nigerians who have found foreign partners who have the capacity, their own money. Now, we may not necessarily come from a particular community where the refinery will be set up, but they are known as investors. We'll now sit down with community and government. Government now will be in 3 levels: the local government, the state, and the federal, as one body. And then the community as one body, and say, okay, this is the amount we intend to invest as our equity on this. This is the crude that government will give us as equity on this. These are the CFOs for landed properties. This is what community is sitting as in terms of land, because ordinarily the oil is in the land of people. Those people have a say in what is under the land, but the land use decree took that right away from them. Now, government similarly is saying that now we want it to be part of the process. Therefore, if investors show up, communities will be on the one flank, government and government agency or government representative will be on the one flank. To form what Marvin has been trying to describe as a JV, it has to be a JV. Now, what becomes equity will be what government, investor, and community agrees as equity. Once that is defined, then community would now participate. Now, to get everybody along, some may not be investors, but there will be workers on the platform. Job creation will be localized to the areas for all kinds of jobs that the areas can provide, and only expertise will be sourced from outside. And that way, you also reduce the pressure of those who feel excluded. For instance, if we set up one, Bayamatu seems to be taking the lead now. If they succeed in setting up one, it has to be an onion approach. The first level of those who participate are those from the Bayamatu area, the Warri area, then the Delta area, then the Niger Delta area, before the larger Nigerian area, in that order. So you are dealing with the issues and pulling away shafts from grain so you can be focused on the production. So I see it work. Government must not think, as it will always do, that I will push it down the neck of people. This is where you are going to set up your refinery. These are the people who are investing. You will come and sit down here and take chunks. No. Get them to have a sense of belonging. Once that happens, it will be seamless, very seamless and possible.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Akio. I'd like Ambassador Marvin Yobana to also speak to the question that Kingsley just raised now. Very important one, because if Dr. Chris Akio is saying now that when the investors come, then the communities can come. Must the investors come first? Can't the state government, the local government, and the communities come together, draw a template and say, when it comes, this is what we are presenting, or else that is where you see another problem being created?
Well, I agree with Dr. Chris on most of the things he said. But you see, government has a model in engaging investors in the oil and gas industry. With their IOCs, they have a joint venture agreement that spells out percentage, what government gets, what is the cost of production, and the sharing formula. But what I want to see different in this whole arrangement in terms of the modular refinery is that government and the community must be key players in this. That means when an investor or government has an investor for community A, for instance, the community leadership of community A will be part of that discussion and negotiation. And there will be a template that will be a uniform template that will go across the Niger Delta. Not saying community A, we are giving you 5% equity. Then community B, we are giving you 10% equity. That will cause some friction. So I think that there will be a standard JV agreement that will be drafted by the regulators, which is NNPC, or the Nigerian Petroleum, what do they call them? DPR. The DPR, that will do that. And that agreement will be looked at. There will be a kind of a stakeholders engagement forum where government says, look, this is the kind of JV agreement we want to present in terms of the modular refinery. Government will now have the duty of selling this to the international investors or local investors who have the funds to bring in. And it is based on that agreement in terms of the environmental standards that will be adhered, the terms of sharing the equities, all this, there must be a standard model, not community saying that this is what we want. No, it must be a uniform arrangement in such a way that everybody now keys in. And to answer the other question you talked about, what has the community been doing in terms of the local community in preparing their people for this model? I think that most communities have started, but it lies on the state governments to now engage these host communities, create sensitization, awareness, so that they start preparing their minds on this is what government wants to do. And I think that government should also reach out to the state governments so that they could also understand this is the template we are coming with, so that they start sensitizing the people. If we do that, we will not have any friction, and there will be nobody that will hijack any certain set of this thing or whatever, except the person has capacity to be a big player in the industry.
Ambassador Yobana, what I expect, what I was actually speaking to was having communities, because these communities are under local governments that are under state government, and so when they don't have a template that they have agreed on, when investors come, you see state government saying one thing, another local government is saying something else. Though, let's take some of the tweets that we have right now. Our guests are already participating, they're contributing via Twitter handle at NTAGMN. And the very first tweet we have is from Mike Anyoku. He says, "This is a welcome development in a challenging environment like ours. It ensures superior output, cost effectiveness, and operations within the budget constraints."
And Mahmoud Haman tweets, "For modular refineries to succeed, global players should be involved, while organized oil communities should have shares and fair jobs."
And Sani Michael Imokoji tweets, "It would be a great milestone if President Muhammadu Buhari can eventually achieve this feat, as this is not the first time we're having such agreements."
And then we have this from Anthony Idio. It says, "Talk is cheap. We need to see quality business and articulate minds that translate plans to visible action."
Eno Ayuk tweets, "Such moves rather encourages regional and community interest rather than national interest. What Nigeria needs is a functional refinery."
And Sani Michael Amakoji again tweets, "The 18 companies licensed by OBJ's government then only ended up forming an association as private petroleum refinery owners of Nigeria.
And this one is from Metunde Zabo. He says, it's a welcome development. I hope it will not fall into the hands of the big fish in the oil industry.
And Anthony Idio again tweets, now because of low labor cost and advanced technology, the Asians provide more compact, cost-effective modules for refining.
Victor Iyosumwa tweets, a brilliant economy idea. It will curb militancy and empower the communities. It's a win situation for government and the communities.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, community-based modular refineries show we are serious about diversifying our economy and refining our fuel in Nigeria.
And Chris Simeon tweets, it's a good omen for the federal government. It will reduce youth restiveness. Kudos to the federal government.
And this handle is Cowboy. Cowboy tweets, the refineries would end up like all other government investments in Nigeria. Government should create the enabling environment for investors.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets again, federal government must ensure that anyone involved in community-based modular refineries is committed to health, safety, and environmental standards.
And then we have this from Wusu Matthew. Wusu Matthew, it's a welcome development if there is proper regulation in place. It will reduce the issues of illegal refinery and militancy.
And Cecilia Okoroma tweets, the multiplier effect includes engaging the youth of the region, using the modular refinery operators to ensure NNPC's pipelines. Those are the tweets that we have right now. You can keep sending in your tweets at NTA GMN. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll discuss more with our guests and, of course, get to find out their closing thoughts. Stay with us.
People lose their jobs every day. For this,
my friend, where's my change?
And this,
where is the food that you say you buy?
And this.
As I told you, now middle of express now they so.
They lose precious opportunities in life simply because they go after small extra stipends.
You know, say now where person they work, then they chop.
Oh yes, but chop only what is rightfully yours. Or don't you agree?
The line on my line, I like. Commander of the Lion Forces.
Join us for Walk Chop, another hilarious episode of your rib-cracking comedy, Professor John Boone.
Showing at 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday on NTA Network International and Star Times.
Shama! Shosa! 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 Shosa!
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
NTA Television College Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, has maintained her reputation of putting together courses that are highly relevant to manpower needs of the broadcast industry. The college has put together 3 core courses for 4 weeks on computer networking for television for the engineers in the broadcast industry. Date 17th April to 12th May 2017. Registration fee 80,000 Naira with accommodation. Also, a 4 weeks course on English grammar and pronunciation for broadcasters, presenters, scriptwriters, news editors, journalists, and master compares. Date 22nd May to 16th June 2017. Registration fee 80,000 Naira with accommodation. TV College also has a 4 weeks course on specialized reporting to cater for those that want to learn the skills of reporting from judiciary, crime, conflict zones, environment, business, natural disasters, politics, and health. The course will teach you the ways to write and handle stories with peculiar situations. Registration fee 80,000 Naira with with accommodation. Date 19th June to 14th July 2017. Venue of all courses will take place at NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. For more inquiries, contact us on 0806 980 9807 0703 660 7155 or email us at ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you can be.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. And of course, we're still discussing community-based modular refineries as proposed by the federal government. We still have our guests in Port Harcourt, Benin, Lagos, as well as here in our Abuja studios. And we have tweets coming in, of course, as a deluge, but we'll just take a few of them now before we go over to our guests to also get their closing thoughts on this interesting subject matter. Chris Simeon tweets, thanks to Dr. Chris Akiyo, he is speaking like an oracle of God.
And George Will, our tweeter, Chris Akiyo, you're a true son of the Niger Delta, and thank you for speaking for us.
And then we have this from Isaac Ojediron. Isaac Ojediron tweets, this system, that's modular refineries, community-based, should be embraced without any delay. China built their economy on cottage industries. Why should our own be different?
And Ibenime Dominic tweets, we should monitor, organize, and legalize illegal refineries. This will be sustainable, it will bring peace, and of course, we all would win.
And Billy Jack Solomon tweets, it's timely to have the modular refineries for small-scale production. However, the government needs to checkmate illegal refineries.
And this one is from Mukhtar. Mukhtar tweets, this is the right step in the right direction. Let's collectively change the focus of Nigeria. The future holds a lot for the future generation.
And Mahmoud Haman tweets, says part of the capital requirement for the modular refineries should come from the 13% derivation for oil-producing states. All right, so those are the tweets that we are taking as our second set. But now let's return to our guest, Sonny Atuma, is an oil and gas analyst. You've listened to the views of others, also the comments made by way of tweets by our viewers. With regard to say, listen, we have been through this route before, as it were. Licenses were issued for refineries, whether it's a complex or otherwise. Ole Dangote is well on course. What are your thoughts? Are we likely to get this right? I know that you have your own opinions about modular refineries altogether.
You see, general opinion is that yes, let's have modular refineries. But I still believe that they are palliatives. The aspect of community participation for what we have now, like the refineries, the ones that are existing, the communities can be made to be participants. It will be cheaper going that way than even the aspect of saying, yes, let's have them all over the place. One, look at the problem of even getting a petroleum feedstock, considering the fact that most of the marginal fields have been allocated to people that are not ordinarily supposed to have them. Speculators, I call them. Two, why is it that, why is it that we are going this way when ordinarily complex refineries that we have, we can utilize them to the fullest?
Sorry,
yes.
Mr. Atuma, you made this point earlier.
Yes.
We all know the challenges that we have with our mega refineries, if you like. Two of them in Port Harcourt, the one in Warri, and then the other in Kaduna. There was an attempt to privatize them in 2007, and of course the privatization was reversed when the late Yar'Adua came in as president. Those refineries do not meet our domestic needs even, and they've been, as virtually everybody knows, drain pipes on the nation's treasury.
Kingsley, let me tell you now that by October 2015, early days of this administration, 23 modular refinery licenses were issued. Licenses to establish refineries were issued. We are almost at 2 years now. And of course, after 2 years, the license lapses. almost 2 years, nothing has happened. We are now, I am not against community participation. I am not against it. But we are saying, look, let us be a bit more organized about it. Because when you talk about modular, look at the aspect of financing. Who is financing? We have not been able to talk about that. Aspect of feedstock, we have not been able to finalize that. So it is better what we have. Let us expand them and get communities to participate. Look at the whole of the Niger Delta, that ordinarily we cannot, government cannot say, let us invest more, especially in petrochemicals, which will employ more people.
All right, Mr. Atuma, thanks a lot. Let's return to Port Harcourt. Let's deal with one of the issues that Mr. Atuma has raised, and it's also been touched on briefly by our contributors, our viewers. Professor Nwozuzu, feedstock, in other words, access to crude, and then the entire pipeline infrastructure. I know that Kio and Yobana have talked about, the location of industries closer to production sites where crude oil is readily available. Are we likely to have challenges because the government, the NNPC, is coming up with its own master plan for crude oil or gas pipeline infrastructure and so on and so forth? Is this going to be, in other words, having community-based modular refineries, is this going to be a quick fix, or it's a long drawn-out project so that we do not have a crisis of expectation, maybe 2-3 years? And how then do we ensure that there's regular access to crude oil for purposes of refining?
Okay, my take on that is the whole idea of community-based modular refinery projects is to discourage vandalism. So when these projects begin to come on stream, then it means that we are going to have less supply disruption in terms of crude oil supplies. But then we need to know how many of these community-based refineries we are likely to have in the Niger Delta area, their capacities, and then what commitment government is going to make towards providing the daily feedstock. Because don't forget, if you have a 10,000 barrel a day refinery, that means 10,000 barrels of crude oil is entering that refinery on a daily basis. Like I also mentioned, if you put in that 10,000 barrels into that refinery on a daily basis, it means you are going to have equivalent refined products on a daily basis. So you have to think of the evacuation and the market for those products.
Very much. Okay, if you can hear me. All right. Thank you very much, Professor Nwozuzu. Very quickly, let's get the views of Ambassador Marvin Yobana. The Dangote is already building a 650,000 capacity refinery. How many modular refineries would we deem to say, okay, would be adequate so that we don't have products without a market? And not forgetting that advanced countries now are leaning towards clean energy. Ghana is already producing, oil. So how sustainable is this?
Well, it's sustainable in the sense that as we speak right now, we don't have enough supply of PMS, of diesel, of kerosene as we speak now. So a modular refinery in a community, for instance, where you have, say, 100 oil wells, you are sure that you don't need an extensive pipeline to be laid out to ensure that the product gets there. So what the NNPC or the government should do is that, like the professor said, there should be an arrangement. That's why I keep talking about a joint venture agreement. There must be a model in which all these refined products, it's either sold directly to the market, or there are oil operators who take the finished products from the modular refineries, which is part of the agreement, the original agreement. So I think that all this can come into the big chunk where government now sells or distributes, NNPC distributes to all parts of Nigeria. In terms of the production of the building of a mega refinery by the Dangote, I don't see it as being feasible. Or how long will he protect that pipeline for the lifetime of that refinery? Because you see, this pipeline crosses several thousand communities up to that the refinery location. So why didn't he just look at it and put in smaller refineries around where you have the product? Because you see, if there's a problem, for instance, in community A, and they vandalize that pipeline, he will not be able to have his products. So I think that it is better, and what government is doing now is a welcome development, and I think all the community people should embrace it. The states should embrace this, because what this will stop is the environmental hazards we are going through. Government is spending so much money in the Ogoni cleanup. The international community is bringing money. The international experts are involved. So if we want to end environmental degradation in the Niger Delta, I think this modular refinery, community based, is one way to go. If we want to end the hostilities in the Niger Delta, this modular refinery is one way to go. If we want to end the agitation of Niger Delta people not participating in the oil and gas industry, the modular refinery is one way to go. But I still advocate that there should be a uniform model that will cover the whole Niger Delta, and not community A fixing their own model, community B fixing their own model. I think government has a responsibility to come up with a model that will be acceptable.
It's on that note, we want to say thank you so much for your insight on the program this morning. Ambassador Marvin Yobana is a former African representative, World Assembly of Youths and Niger Delta. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
You also would like to say a very big thank you to Professor Chijioke Nwauzuzu, Deputy Director, Emerald Energy Institute, University of Port Harcourt. Prof, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go to our Benin Network Center, where we have Dr. Chris Akiyo. Very, very quickly, we're out of time. The same question I asked earlier, how many modular refineries would we say is enough so that we don't have too much products without a market? And knowing that the world is leaning towards clean energy, how sustainable would these modular refineries be over time?
All right, thank you. I'm not one of those who think that there will be too much product. Today, we're doing about 1.8 million barrels per day. Nigeria can do more once there's peace and stability and less interruption. We can do as much as 2.8, 2.7, and even 3 million barrels per day production in terms of crude. Now, if Dangote takes about 500,000 and the other 4 refineries take another 500,000, the modular refineries we're expecting will get stock feed of another 1 million, and we can only perhaps import about 1 million into the OPEC market. Now, the beauty of refining is that we can also sell refined products to other countries, like we're buying now refined products or doing crude swaps. There are countries that will just buy outright refined products because they don't have refineries. The Dangote 650 barrels per day, 650,000 barrels per day certainly is not just going to be for Nigeria. Other littoral countries around sub-Saharan Africa probably will buy from that refinery. So there is the market. And then I think that once we have stability, there will be the product. Government just need to be committed, because even the local refineries, the Nigerian refineries as it are now, do not have feedstock, because we think about quickly selling the crude for the gains of these few racketeers in the system, which is why NNPC is always in this logjam fighting with business people who are also very strong cabal in that network. If you want to fight them, they're probably going to take your head off. But we have to be strong with policy. We have enough crude, enough gas in this country to feed as many modular refineries as we can provide, because we have so many fields yet untapped, even the ones they are calling marginal fields, and they are sitting out to their friends. Some still do as much as 150,000 barrels per day, 200,000 barrels per day. They just declare 25,000 barrels and they give it to one of their cronies. So this criminality in the sector needs to be removed and let community participate. And I can assure you, if we get it right, decentralizing this production, government will, it's a win-win. It doesn't mean that it's only Niger Delta people that must own the modular refinery in the Niger Delta. Any investor, even from Karana Moda, even from Niger, if you come in and sit with the community and put your template down, and community is part of the process, you set up a refinery. But government must guarantee that feedstock, guarantee some kind of minimized zero-digit kind of loan or investment-friendly environment, so that we bother less about pipelines traveling distances where people can vandalize them. I subscribe to it. I think it's doable, and I do not have fear that we don't have the market. Right now, Nigerians don't have products. We don't have product we can consume. Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Chris Akia, former president of Ijo Youth Council, would like to thank you always for being part of our discussion. A delight for your insights. All right, so we go very quickly to Lagos. Mr. Balazaka, unfortunately, we have to apologize. I mean, while you were flowing, and all of a sudden we had audio snags coming out from our Lagos network studios. Can we get your closing thoughts on this? A number of issues have popped up. From your perspective, what do we need to do to get the community-based modular refineries right this time? Briefly.
Thank you very much. Though I've been out of connections with you guys for the last 45 minutes, but this is the way I will want to close it up. I believe in the concept of modular refineries. If you look at it very well, the market is going to be there. Nigeria is suffering under energy crisis today because, like we said initially, the strategic domestic sector, the strategic commercial and industrial sectors are all depending on generators. We don't have electricity, so we really have energy crisis. And when you look at it again, just from the immediate past political dispensation, the then finance minister and coordinating minister for the economy said we were losing an average of 400,000 barrels of crude oil per day to vandals. To me, that was a well-crafted and a well-syndicated criminality. So only from that alone, at an average of 20,000 barrels per day, the 400,000 barrels per day crude oil that we were losing can act as a feedstock to how many modular refineries? To 20 modular refineries. And that the 400,000 barrels of crude oil per day we were talking about that we were losing to thieves or criminals, if you convert that to barrels and to liters and you divide that by the capacity of a 33,000 liters tanker, we were losing an average of 2,000 tankers of crude oil per day. If we can get that back on stream, it's going to help. And based on the principle of economics, localization and location of industries, closeness to raw material will definitely help. So whichever way we look at it, it will be useful, it will help in resolving the energy crisis in Nigeria and beyond, and it will be good for Nigeria. From 1990 to date, we're talking about more than 27 years, we've not been able to construct one additional refinery or maintaining even the ones we inherited. So if we can start with the modular refineries, that will be a way to go. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Balazaka, a petroleum engineer, would like to thank you for contributing to our discussion. You joined us from our Lagos Network studios. So I appreciate Mr. Sonny Atuma. It's an oil and gas analyst. He was with us here at the Abuja studios. Mr. Atuma, thanks a lot for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so that does it for our discussion segment on Good Morning Nigeria. We only have time now to go over to the weather center. As we indicated, it's been a wet morning here in the Federal Capital Territory. What are the prospects for the rest of today?
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the weather segment from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. For Tuesday, we expect more moisture influx across the country, and this will keep most parts of the country in cloudy conditions, except for some parts of the inland cities of the southwest and the coastal belts where possibilities of rain showers are expected in the morning. Later in the afternoon, partly cloudy to cloudy skies are anticipated over the northern parts of the country, although some parts of Sokoto, Katsina, Gusau axis are expected to experience isolated thundery activities. The high grounds of the central state will affect areas around some parts of Jos, Abuja axis, parts of Lokoja and Benue state are expected to experience isolated thunderstorms. This will also affect areas around Calabar axis, Bayelsa, some parts of Delta State, Warri, and the inland cities of the southeast. Temperatures are expected to drop across the country for Tuesday, so be sure to enjoy your day. And that's where we conclude the weather forecast. Have a great day.
And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria today. We've been discussing community-based modular refinery. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back again at 7 a.m. discussing something else. So join us then. I'm Rhoda Albo. I'm sure you enjoy the rest of your day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined Rhoda, of course, in appreciating your being with us this morning. Have a lovely day.